The golden age of Hollywood promised glamour, wealth, and eternal fame. But behind its dazzling marquees operated a ruthless machine that manufactured stars, exploited their vulnerabilities, and systematically destroyed them when they became inconvenient. Drugs were not mere accidents of excess. They were deliberate tools of control, handed out by studio doctors and executives to keep performers working impossible hours, maintain perfect appearances, and suppress the human limitations that threatened production schedules. Amphetamines fueled 18-hour shooting days. Barbiturates ensured rapid recovery between takes. And when addiction inevitably took hold, the same industry that created the dependency feigned shock and blamed the individual. This pattern was brutally efficient. Build up the talent, chemically sustain them beyond natural endurance, discard them when the addiction made them unreliable, then rewrite the narrative as a personal moral failing. The most sickening aspect is the hypocrisy. Studios that slipped pep pills to 13-year-old girls would later blacklist them for the dependency they engineered. The following 8 stories reveal how the system turned talent into chemical casualties, leaving behind broken bodies and shattered lives. Bobby Driscoll epitomized the cruelest betrayal of a child star. Chosen by Walt Disney as the wholesome face of the studio's early live-action films, Driscoll became the voice of Peter Pan and starred in classics like Treasure Island. Disney worked him relentlessly 60-hour weeks as a child, while providing stimulants to keep him alert and sedatives to make him sleep. "Disney taught me to use drugs," he later confided to a friend. The studio introduced him to pharmaceuticals before he even lost his baby teeth. When puberty altered his cherubic features, Disney terminated his contract and reportedly blacklisted him, labeling him difficult. The sudden rejection, going from America's most adored child to worthless teenager, devastated his psyche. Bullied in regular school, he self-medicated with alcohol, then heroin. Arrests for possession followed, along with failed attempts at comeback roles. In 1968, children playing in an abandoned East Village tenement found his body on a filthy mattress surrounded by religious pamphlets and empty bottles. Unrecognizable from his childhood image, he was buried as a John Doe in a pauper's grave on Hart Island. It took nearly a year for fingerprints to identify Disney's former golden boy. He died at 31, alone, broke, and forgotten by the industry that had once celebrated him. Judy Garland's tragedy is perhaps the most infamous example of studio-sponsored chemical control. At 13, MGM executives ordered studio doctors to administer amphetamines, called pep pills, and presented as vitamins, to keep her thin and energetic for the Wizard of Oz. When hunger struck, they gave appetite suppressants. When the uppers kept her awake, barbiturates were prescribed. By 16, Garland was trapped in a vicious up-down cycle she did not choose. Louis B. Mayer and his fixers managed her doses, monitored her weight, and controlled her developing body through pharmaceuticals. When MGM fired her in 1950, they offered no rehab, no acknowledgement of their role in her addiction. They simply labeled her difficult. She died in 1969 at 47 in a rented London bathroom, discovered by her 5th husband. Her body looked 67, ravaged by decades of chemical assault that began when she was still a child. The studio executives who first put pills in her teenage hands all outlived her. Gail Russell's descent began not with recreation, but with survival. Paramount scouts discovered the strikingly beautiful art student and thrust her into films without any acting training. Pathologically shy, she suffered such severe stage fright that she vomited before scenes. Instead of offering gradual training or psychological support, directors and crew handed her drinks to calm her nerves. "Take the edge off," they told her. Alcohol was cheaper and faster than therapy. What started as studio-sanctioned self-medication quickly became full-blown alcoholism. Within years, the ethereal beauty had become bloated and trembling, increasingly unemployable. Russell died alone in her apartment in 1961 at 36, surrounded by empty bottles. Her body discovered days later. Her death certificate listed alcohol as the cause, but made no mention of the industry that first put the bottle in her hand. Montgomery Clift's 1956 car accident shattered his face and unleashed a pharmaceutical nightmare. Once considered Marlon Brando's only true rival, Clift emerged from reconstructive surgery with chronic pain and an identity crisis. Doctors overprescribed painkillers. Overlapping prescriptions from multiple physicians created dangerous combinations, and Clift added alcohol to the mix. Within 3 years, the once reliable actor struggled to remember lines, his hands shook, and insurance companies demanded special bonds for his films. Directors shot his scenes early in the day and used body doubles for distant shots. He died in 1966 at 45 from a heart attack brought on by a lethal combination of alcohol and prescription drugs. Over 30 medicine bottles were found in his home, all legally prescribed. Bela Lugosi's addiction began legitimately. Chronic sciatic pain from years of physical performances led doctors to prescribe morphine in the 1930s, when opiates were the only effective treatment. As tolerance built, his need grew, coinciding with career decline due to typecasting as Dracula. The less he worked, the more he relied on medication. The more he relied on medication, the less employable he became. By the late 1940s, he was gaunt and disoriented, reduced to Ed Wood's low-budget horrors for pocket change. In 1955, he courageously entered rehab and spoke publicly about his addiction, but primitive treatment methods and unresolved pain led to relapse. He died in 1956 at 73, broke, wearing his Dracula cape in his coffin, a final ironic link to the role that had both made and confined him. Barbara Payton's fall was astonishingly rapid. In the early 1950s, she embodied the blonde bombshell ideal, starring opposite James Cagney. A violent love triangle with Frank Catone and Tom Neal-generated tabloid scandal, effectively ending her career due to the double standard applied to women. As offers vanished, she turned to alcohol, barbiturates, and heroin to numb despair. Within 5 years, she went from Warner Brothers contract star to Sunset Boulevard prostitute. By 1956, photos showed a woman who appeared decades older, bloated and disheveled. She died in 1967 at 39, her body destroyed by liver damage, heart failure, and malnutrition. Errol Flynn embodied danger on screen and in life. Alcohol, opiates, cocaine, and barbiturates, often consumed together, destroyed the body that had once performed its own stunts. The dashing swashbuckler of the 1930s became the puffy, trembling figure of the 1950s. Insurance bonds and body doubles became necessary. He died in 1959 at 50 in Vancouver, his organs showing the damage of a 70-year-old. The substances that once fueled his wild image ultimately erased it entirely. John Drew Barrymore carried the curse of a 3-generation dynasty of addiction. Son of John Barrymore and father of Drew Barrymore, he inherited both extraordinary talent and genetic vulnerability to substance abuse. Alcohol, LSD, and amphetamines derailed a promising career. Missed rehearsals, erratic behavior, and disappearances led to blacklisting. He spent his final decades in isolation and financial precarity, estranged from the industry and from his daughter, who later battled her own addiction. He died in 2004 at 72, largely forgotten. These 8 lives, child stars chemically managed before puberty, terrified beauties given alcohol to perform, injured leading men over-medicated into oblivion, typecast icons trapped in pain, and promising talents consumed by inherited demons. Reveal a system that introduced drugs as professional necessities, normalized their use, then discarded the addicted while denying responsibility. The pills were not the disease. They were symptoms of an industry that treated human beings as disposable resources. While studios no longer directly dispense pharmaceuticals, the underlying pressures, impossible schedules, appearance standards, and expectations of constant availability still create conditions where dependency becomes nearly inevitable. From Judy Garland to today's stars, the pattern persists. Extract maximum value through chemical means, then abandon the wreckage when it becomes unprofitable. Until the system itself changes, these golden age casualties will remain not isolated tragedies, but predictable outcomes of an industry built on exploitation.